Hey friends, welcome back to another Ben Talking Authentically video. Today I want to tell you why I think the whole strength versus size conversation is dumb. Many of you probably already know what that means, like strength versus size. What does that mean, like the conversation around it? But for those of you who don't, there's this conversation kind of in the fitness space and really specifically nowadays on like big podcasts, like for instance, the Huberman Lab podcast, where people talk about like the differences in training for the goal of strength versus training for the goal of size. And the conversation is based on this notion that like training for strength and training for size are two very different things, and that the conversation is really one of a binary nature, meaning that you can either train for strength or you can train for size. I can either put ketchup on my burger or mustard on my burger. But my argument is that you can put both ketchup and mustard on your burger. And that will, in most cases, be the best combination. That's a hot take for burgers specifically, so we'll put that analogy aside for now. But the point is that I'll start with my conclusion and then I'll work backwards from there. People who are training for size, for bodybuilding, to get more muscular, are always training for strength. It makes no sense to say that you are doing a bodybuilding program without the goal, consciously or not, of improving strength. Strength as a variable is embedded in every lifting activity that you do. Now, to the credit of the argument, again, the strength versus size argument, if you're training purely for strength and you don't care about putting on muscle, there are some things that you might need to do slightly differently, which I'll talk about later. But it should be known that the principles of strength training apply to all of bodybuilding training. And for the vast majority of people, I'm talking 99.99999% of people, these two things are not different and should not be looked at differently. So my sort of quip that I like to say in relation to this is that all hypertrophy, all muscle building programs are strength programs, but not all strength programs are muscle building programs. So let me tell you what I mean. When the goal is just to get strong, just to put weight on the bar, you're a power lifter at the extreme, let's say. All that you care about is putting more load on the bar. And generally what that means for training is that you do kind of a similar amount of volume, depending on who you are, and all those things that can be very different. But like, power lifters nowadays will do anywhere from like 5 to 15 sets of like bench press per week. A lot of people vary, right? But when they're trying to improve strength, it's not that the volume is super different of the work. It's usually that the effort put into the work is different. And when I say effort, I mean proximity to failure. So when you're looking at a power lifter, let's say, and you're looking at someone who's just trying to put more weight on the bar, you're essentially just looking at someone who's trying to improve a skill, right? And so what do people who are trying to improve a skill do? They do the skill in the way that is most technically proficient for them, for the task, and they try to do it such that they're not failing at the task, okay? So imagine that you were a pitcher, right, in baseball, and you were trying to get better at pitching. You would not want to pitch so much in a single session such that your arms and the muscles of your arms were so fatigued that your technique was changing a lot. Like imagine, a pitcher who had like just done a set of, bench press to failure, and then they go to pitch, right? Silly example, but you'll get the point. They would be under so much fatigue that the technique, the skill of the pitch would be so far off of what they would actually want that the output of that skill would be lower. So they wouldn't throw it as hard, let's say. They wouldn't be as accurate, let's say. But at that point, under the fatigue, they're also just training a whole different thing, right? It's like you change any one variable related to a skill, you're doing a different skill, okay? Now, What would that pitcher ideally want? That pitcher would ideally want to practice as many repetitions with the same exact ideal technique as they could, so that over time they not only can pitch more accurately, maybe they can learn to throw harder over time if that's their goal. They're repeating the same skill under lower amounts of fatigue, relatively speaking, to that first silly example, so that they can get better at the skill. And the same thing applies to strength training and powerlifting, let's say. If you're a high level powerlifter, you don't want to be failing movements in training. And most powerlifters will, and specifically most powerlifting coaches will tell you this, like they keep their athletes far away from a point where they are getting very close to failure. You see a vast majority of like high level guys now, in my understanding, who are doing sets where, if they're doing a single, let's say, they're doing it so that they have 2 reps in the tank, 3 reps in the tank, 4 reps in the tank, sometimes even 5 reps in the tank, right? Because they're practicing the skill. Okay, so how the hell is that different from hypertrophy training? Well, in hypertrophy training, our only goal is to get bigger. But to get bigger, we have to create tension in target tissues. Tension is just the pulling force that muscles create. And so if the only goal really is just to put tension in the muscle and to maximize tension in the muscle, that basically means that we have to be doing sets that are at or close to failure. That's how we get the muscle growth response. So unlike strength training, where we don't really have to train close to failure to add more load to the bar, if we want to get bigger, we got to train close to failure. But here's the catch. When you are training close to failure every single week, when you are putting more tension in the target muscle every week, if your recovery is on point, you're sleeping well, and your program doesn't suck ass, and your exercise selection doesn't suck ass, you will be adding more load to the bar. You will be getting stronger. And in fact, one of the clearest signs that, at least if you're a natural lifter, you're not making progress is if you're not getting stronger. So to talk about bodybuilding training, hypertrophy training, as if it's like this thing that's over here in left field, and to talk about strength training like it's over here in right field makes no sense. Strength training, strength as a quality, is embedded in every hypertrophy program that you do. And even calling it a hypertrophy program or a muscle building program, I get it. I get why we do it. I do it unconsciously, okay? It's just to say, hey, the goal is to get bigger. It leaves people with this idea, and this is the sort of me getting to why it matters thing. It leaves people with this idea that strength is like not a relevant factor for getting bigger. And I also, by the way, slight tangent here, have never understood when people are like, bodybuilders aren't strong. Have you ever met like a real bodybuilder? Oh my God, the average bodybuilder across most movements is way stronger than the average powerlifter. Like powerlifters are strong generally in 3 things, in the variations of those 3 things: squat, bench, deadlift. But for some reason, when we go over to like a machine chest press, we just don't consider that strength. Like, what the hell is that? And you'll see, like, again, high level bodybuilders regularly just maxing out the stack on every machine that they use. I have trained very closely and worked very closely with IFBB Pro bodybuilders, and they are the strongest people alive on average across all different skills. So bodybuilders are strong at every skill pretty much in the gym in terms of just movements. Powerlifters tend to be strong at 3, which is why bodybuilders look the way that they look, and generally why powerlifters look the way that they look. Bodybuilders apply effort to all muscle groups equally, in the sense that they're trying to get everything big. Obviously, some people have programs that bias them in certain directions, training more tissues or training some tissues more than others, but hopefully you get my point with that. So overall, what's the big picture takeaway, and why is this stuff important to understand? Again, I will repeat my quip that I mentioned earlier. All bodybuilding hypertrophy programs are strength programs. Not all strength programs are bodybuilding programs. The main difference being your proximity to failure and what you're prioritizing. Are you prioritizing you putting more weight on the bar and practicing the skill, or are you prioritizing the muscle size and the effort, and then the strength comes as a kind of second order consequence of you trying to get bigger over time? Why does this matter? Well, because if you're someone who's listening to these dumb conversations about how, strength is like, this thing that's over here and size is over here. And if you focus too much on size, then like you're not getting the benefits of the strength. No, no, no. Get that out of your head. When you're doing a bodybuilding program and you're not getting stronger, that's a problem. Now, the rate of progression, how fast you add load to the bar, how many reps that you add to your set, right? That will drastically slow down the more advanced that you get. But major red flag in any program is you're not getting stronger over time. So if you are someone who is interested in purely strength, just understand, and by strength, what we really mean is adding load to your exercises, right? People make it seem like strength is this like amorphous, ooey gooey, like very complicated thing. No, no, you're just adding more weight to your exercises. So if you think that strength is your goal, right, just understand that you can do it in the context of not getting bigger, just use less effort, train farther from failure. You'll still probably get stronger. You may even get stronger faster. But if you're under the impression that you can't integrate strength and size as a concept, you are totally wrong. And again, I want to make it clear that improving your strength in all of your major lifts over time in whatever rep range, which I'll address in a second, that's what you want to see. That's like the goal, in some sense, indirectly, of bodybuilding, is you want to be getting stronger in all of your lifts over time. If you're not, probably a problem. Now, there's this other sort of weird aspect to this conversation about reps. People seem to believe that there are strength rep ranges and hypertrophy rep ranges. And again, much like the strength versus size conversation, there is utility to that, right? Because would it really be practical to do like sets of 1 to 3 on all your hypertrophy-based exercises? Probably not. Just again, practically speaking, it's difficult to accumulate volume that way, right? Imagine doing hack squats and you're doing sets of 1 instead of sets of 5 to 15 or 8 to 12 or whatever it is. 5 to 15, 8 to 12 for muscle building is just a convenient range within which to accumulate volume. You're not using so much load that every individual rep is like a catastrophe potentially, and you're not using so little load that every rep takes 10 minutes or every set takes 10 minutes to complete, right? It's just a convenient sweet spot, the 5 to 15, the 8 to 12, whatever you want to call it. So what you all should also get out of your head, in my humble opinion, is this idea that some rep ranges are like strength rep ranges and other rep ranges are like hypertrophy rep ranges. And what I mean more specifically, because I know that sounds contradictory, is that the concept of strength is not confined to a range. Okay, let me give you a concrete example. If I do Smith machine bench press, oh, heaven forbid, oh, Smith machine, so dysfunctional. And my 10 rep max is 225. And over time, let's say a year later, my 10 rep max is 260. Did I get stronger? Well, yes. Don't deny your intuition on this. Yes. I did 10 reps with 225 over there. And then a year later, I did 10 reps with 260. So I added load to the bar with the same amount of reps. Many people will hear that and think to themselves, well, he was doing 10 reps. He wasn't doing like 1 to 5. So he didn't get stronger. That's not strength rep range. That makes no sense. That's a non-argument to me. That's like saying 2 plus 3 is 17. Okay? Doesn't make sense to me. The math doesn't check out. So if you get stronger, i.e., if you use the same technique with the same sort of tempo and all things that are included in that for the same relative effort, so let's just call it you're training to failure, and you use more weight for the same reps, or you use the same weight and you do more reps, both of those are versions of strength. You just increase the output. Again, output is pretty much synonymous with strength. That's what we mean by strength. Strength is output, right? The number on the bar went up for the same reps, or the number on the bar stayed the same and I added more reps, right? So in that example, maybe on day one, I do 225 for 10. A year later, I'm able to get 225 for close to 20, okay? Or something like that. So that's strength. And that is strength progression. If you don't think that strength increases in those scenarios, then I don't know what you mean by strength, right? If strength improvement means anything, that's what it means. Strength is not confined to a rep range. Strength exists as an undercurrent to every set, every exercise, every rep range that you do. So hopefully this doesn't sound pedantic to any of you. Oh, Ben is just mentally masturbating about these things, and it's just like, these are strength. No. There's no such thing as a strength rep range. There's no such thing as a strength program in isolation. There's no such thing as a muscle growth program in isolation. These are all we're just talking about slightly different things, all with the same undercurrent of strength. So if you want to get stronger at barbell bench press and deadlift and squat, and you're a power lifter, cool. You're doing a powerlifting program, but you're getting stronger at all those movements. If you want to do a bodybuilding program, i.e. you want to make all your muscles bigger, great. It's still a strength program, great. If you're not improving strength in all your movements, that's a bad sign. And the last thing that I want to touch on is just this idea that there are strength movements, okay? Putting the context of powerlifting aside, although it's kind of difficult to do that because that is the sort of basis that has, I think, poisoned many people's understanding of these concepts. People seem to think that there are certain movements that are like strength movements, like the squat, bench, and deadlift. And then there are these other movements over here out in right field or left field. I forget which one I said in reference to bodybuilding earlier. But like there are some movements over here that are strength movements, and then there are some movements over here that are hypertrophy or size movements. That also makes no sense. Should I even explain it to you? I think most of you will probably get it, but I'm gonna anyway, if not only just to work through the thought process out loud myself. What would it look like to say there's a strength movement? Well, if we define strength as output in a particular skill, well, is there output in all the skills that you're doing in bodybuilding? Let's take a dumbbell curl, which many people just seem to think is like a fluff exercise. Well, if I do dumbbell curls with 30s for 15 reps today, and a year from now I do it with 40s for 15 reps, that would be quite the progression. Did I get stronger? Yes. Output went up. So therefore, the dumbbell curl is a strength movement for the muscles that perform a dumbbell curl. So to say that some exercises have this mystical, magical quality which makes them strength exercises, and other exercises, oh no, they're not strength exercises, they're something else, that makes no sense. So in bodybuilding, everything is a strength exercise. You're getting stronger in your movements. Doesn't matter if it's a dumbbell curl or a calf raise or a barbell deadlift. You have muscles, those muscles contract. Those muscles contract to perform reps at a given load and at a given effort. If you increase the load over time, if you increase the reps over time with the same technique and the same movement with the same muscles contracting, guess what? You've gotten stronger. And if you're not getting stronger in your hypertrophy programs, that is something that needs to be fixed. So I hope this helps. I hope that the way that I've laid this out was at least somewhat clear. And if you have any questions, comments, or challenges, you're like, Ben, that doesn't make any sense. Ben, you're not making sense on this topic. Let me know why I'm not making sense below so that I can be less stupid and so that everyone else, as a consequence, can be less stupid, because that's what we're here to do, ultimately, is for all of us to be less stupid. So anyway, again, as I said in the previous talking head videos, I will continue to put out my normal content. I just am going to do this whenever a topic strikes me, and I will continue to upload the other stuff at some regular frequency as well. So I hope you all enjoyed. See you next time.